All right. Hello, everybody out there. Thank you for tuning in to Virtual Coffee with Ben. My name is Ben Blackman. I'm the Director of Development for Ridge. Stands for Royal Innovation Design Group, which is a group of innovation consultants based in sunny St. Petersburg, Florida. Before we get started, as always, I want to encourage everybody out there to go to the Ridge YouTube channel and our Facebook page. You can find all kinds of great content on how we can help your organizations to innovate more effectively. You can also schedule your own virtual coffee with Ben, which doesn't necessarily mean you're on the show, although we'd love to have you. But we can just have a conversation on how we can help you strategically plan for the future. This web series, which usually takes place on Wednesday, we got a special edition, the Thursday afternoon special today. And I'm excited to welcome our guest today. He's a razor sharp senior sales executive with a wealth of knowledge on the importance of recruitment marketing and technology. He's a graduate of the finest university in the Midwest. That's the University of Missouri. And he's a very close friend of mine. His name is Brian Bernatsky. Thanks for joining me today, Brian.
Yeah, happy to be on. And we had kind of a crazy day yesterday. I don't think we wanted to steal the thunder of everything that was going on. I think it was a wise move to move it today.
That's right. So the special Thursday edition of Virtual Coffee with Ben. And I've known Brian now for almost 2 decades. And You're one of the most tenacious and successful salespeople that I know. But you weren't always headed in that direction. We actually met at the University of Missouri, and we were both getting journalism degrees. I'm curious, how did you really end up in sales? And how did your career path take you to where you're at now, which is at Symphony Talent?
Yeah. So as you said, we were both in journalism school, and I think my parents forgot to tell me that there's not a lot of money in journalism. So I learned that as soon as I graduated, and my girlfriend at the time, now wife, was living in New York. I stayed in school for an extra football season, 4.5 years, and she was in New York, and I decided to move there. I didn't want to pursue a career in journalism after studying it for 4 years, and was working for an advertising agency called Initiative. And I think they're still around today, but 6 months in, it was just very clear. I had no interest in it. I wasn't getting paid very much at all in New York City. That's a recipe for disaster. That city will spit you up and chew you out and spit you up, I should say. And I went to lunch with one of my buddies who had just taken a job at a company called Alpha 411. I had no idea what they were doing. All I know was he said I'd be great at it. I love talking to people. They make 150 calls a day. So I thought, sure, I'll give it a try. The company ended up evolving into what's now known as Yext, which is over $1 billion company. I think I was the 12th salesperson there. So kind of a wild first job to start with a company 12 years ago that, now is a publicly traded $1 billion company run by a CEO named Howard Lerman, great CEO. So that was really my first dive into sales in general and learning about sales. I was calling people, getting their credit cards over the phone, selling phone calls, which is insane. And so once I started doing it, I figured out that a lot of sales I had a lot of the attributes that I think make a great salesperson: competitive, loves to talk a lot, loves to convince people, loves talking to people in general, which I think is the number one reason why I've been so successful in sales. So that's how I got my start. And then from there, worked my way up at Yext, started training new salespeople. So kids coming right out of college, just like myself. And then it got to a point where I was sick of training salespeople and I wanted to actually start selling again. So I reached out to you, and you were a career builder at the time. Didn't know a lot about the job board or talent acquisition space, but you were making pretty good money at the time. And I was in New York, you were in Kansas City. I took an interview, ended up getting the job about 6 months later when the timing was right. Stayed at Career Builder for about 3 years. And then one of my colleagues from Career Builder actually brought me over to Smashfly, which is where I am now. We are a company that's owned by Symphony Talent. And I actually brought you over to Symphony Talent, or Smashfly, I should say. So we all came full circle, and I've been here ever since. And I absolutely love what I do. I love the space. I know it well. And that's sort of the last, I guess, 12 years of my career, from starting at some ad agency in New York to where I am today.
Yeah, it's been a fun ride for sure. And I left Smashfly obviously before they were acquired by Symphony Talent, and I wanted to give our audience a little bit of idea about Smashfly. So Smashfly is a recruitment marketing platform. What can you tell us about that product? How is it used? What's the target market, and what kind of impact are you hoping to have on your customers?
Yeah, so like you said, it's a recruitment marketing platform. So when I joined Smashfly, we were hosting companies' career sites, providing them a back-end CRM to really be able to manage candidates a lot more efficiently. Most companies, 10, 12 years ago, we had a career site, the experience was terrible for candidates, and then you had your applicant tracking system. So it was a lot of click, apply, or goodbye. And for candidates, they don't want to just apply to a job. They want to get to know you, right? It's like a relationship. So we have technology that allows companies to capture that talent before they drop off, and then give them some automation and efficiency to really keep in touch with those candidates and nurture them over time, so that when they are ready to make that next jump, that organization is top of mind that's been nurturing and reaching out. So we've obviously expanded upon that. We can help companies with their referral process, their on-site or virtual events today, as with the COVID world going on. We have a chat bot. So really an all-encompassing solution. And what makes us unique in the market since the Symphony Talent acquisition is now we have the award-winning brand and creative and design services with Symphony Talent to pair with the technology. So we automate and empower for really any target market, from companies with 500 employees all the way up to your HPs and Intels of the world. So, companies come to us when they really have a need to make their process more efficient, and the experience that they're providing candidates, which generally isn't a good one until they dig deep and realize this is not the experience that I would want myself to go through when applying for a job here. So we need to change things. So that's, I think, in a nutshell, what makes us unique and what our platform is and does.
Yeah, it's certainly a very cool product, and encourage anybody out there in the recruitment space to check it out as well. We'll talk about that before we hop off. But we talk a lot about the pandemic on this show. Unfortunately, it's just a topic that is still out there, and it's affected a lot of different industries in a variety of ways. One of the reasons I wanted to have you on is because I wanted to get your perspective. You deal with a ton of hiring managers, HR departments. I'm really curious, how are companies adjusting their approach to recruitment, and how has Symphony Talent, Smashfly, been able to respond to challenges and changes based on the pandemic?
It's a great question. I mean, I think when this pandemic hit, nobody at our company, and I think in our space, knew what was going to happen. But we quickly found out that, with a global pandemic, there's two types of organizations. There's the organizations like healthcare that are ramping up. If they've got, new hospitals that they're building, they're ramping that up. And with that, they need more people. They need more nurses. Registered nurses are a hot commodity. But then you have the organizations where, unfortunately, they have to get a little bit more lean. They have to make some cuts. And so with that, you lose a lot of manpower. So if you don't have the manpower, what do you need, right? You need the technology. You need to be able to automate a lot of things that maybe a lot of your recruiters were doing manually before, that you just don't have the manpower to do. So it really is industry dependent, but it's forced a lot of companies to, I think, allow their employees flexibility to be remote. I think one of the interesting things is going to be after, the world gets back to normal, which will hopefully be soon. Are companies going to continue to force employees to be in an office Monday through Friday, right? I think a lot of times we figured out we don't need to be as in person 9 to 5 every single day as we thought. Now, I've worked remote for 6 years. I've loved it, but most of my company has been in an office. Now, I now work at home with 3 of my kids, and that's a little bit challenging. You may see one of those Rugrats run in here every now and then, but it really is just industry dependent, and how companies have tried to adapt, just being in this workforce that's fully remote right now, and probably will be at least for the next 5 to 6 months.
Yeah, that's a great segue to my next question. I wanted to know how things have kind of changed for you personally. You mentioned that you've been working remotely for a long time, but in all sales roles, including yours, there are still times when you need to have those in-person meetings to develop relationships, maybe do a presentation, close a deal. How have you altered your sales strategy and your process to maintain your high level of success when pretty much everything's virtual now?
Yeah, and I think, luckily that's something that everybody had to deal with, right? Not just me or our company. So, I used to love traveling to those in-person meetings, right? One night, next meeting, next day you have a meeting, you fly home. That was my bread and butter. I really feel like I thrived in an environment where I could be in a room with people and read the room and see faces. It's a little bit more difficult to do that through Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Slack or whatever tool you're using, especially when clients are a little bit weary to turn their cameras on, right? You can't see anything. And so I think what I've done to really try to make up for that is just build as many relationships as I can with as many people of the organization, be it a phone call when I would normally send an email. That's about as much as you can do. And a lot of customers, I think, are going to go back to the way of inviting people into the office. But I think you're also going to see customers that, maybe have a lot more policies about having people and strangers into the office that are not working for that organization, that may want to keep everything remote for vendors. And so that's going to be something we'll have to adjust to. But I haven't found it as difficult as I thought. And I think that's just because everybody knows this is the world that we're living in today, and you've just got to make it work, because being in person together just isn't an option right now.
Yeah, everybody seems to kind of understand that the game has changed a bit. So nobody's really at a disadvantage, which is, I guess, a good thing. If you're just joining us right now, you're watching Virtual Coffee with Ben. I'm Ben Blackman, the Director of Development for Ridge. I'm joined today by my good friend, Brian Bernatsky. He's a Senior Sales Executive for Symphony Talent. If you like what you're hearing, again, I want to encourage everybody to go to the Ridge YouTube channel and our Facebook page for more conversations and content just like this one. We're talking a little bit about the adjustments that Brian has made in sales process. I'm curious if we back up a little bit. We talked about your strengths in talking to people, pounding the phone calls, which is great. I love having people on the show that are experts in what they do and are always thinking about ways to improve. I'm curious, are there organizational processes that you have? Are there goal setting processes that you have that you would attribute your success to? What is kind of your approach, especially starting the year right now? How would you, what advice would you give to other people that maybe had a rough year? There's a lot of salespeople out there that I know that had rough patches in 2020, and that's, understandable. But if they're looking to get back on the right track, they're looking for answers, what advice would you have? What has been successful for you in your career in making sure that, you're always hitting your quotas or, making those president's trips, things like that? What advice would you have for those people?
Yeah, I think the number one piece of advice I would give is you need to take it day by day. I think if this pandemic has told us anything, nothing is guaranteed, right? The world tomorrow could be completely different than it is today. So from a goal setting standpoint, I think as a salesperson, your job is pretty simple. You have a quota, you need to hit it. That is ultimately your goal. That is the worth and the value that you bring to the organization. So for me, my goal is always the same. It's to crush my quota. It's to get through it. Last year when the pandemic hit, was the first quarter since I joined Smashfly that I didn't sell anything. And that was a new reality for me in dealing with failure. And so now obviously there were some circumstances that went into that, but it doesn't matter. When you're a salesperson, you've got a number. A global pandemic or not, you have a number because the company gives you that number, and that's how they need to operate based on you bringing in that revenue. So, for me, I tried to focus on a day-to-day, and even I think more so out, maybe a week. Here's what I need to accomplish this week to get these deals to the next stage of the process or over the finish line. I think so often salespeople are, trying to map out, their quarterly plan or their yearly plan. And they sort of don't drill down as much into the weeds from the day-to-day standpoint that they need to, because every day is a battle and you either win the day or you lose the day. And so when I wake up every day and I go upstairs and walk 15 feet to my desk, I try to win the day. And that's how I've been operating now, really since COVID hit, because all you can control is right now. And so that's what I would tell everybody is, try not to get so down on yourself, because as a salesperson, I always, say this, the highs are the best highs in the world, but the lows can be very dark and lonely. So just try to stay in the moment, live day by day, and put all your focus and energy in that day, and just try to have as much of a positive mental attitude as you can, because at this point you're home alone. You're the only one that can motivate yourself. You don't have the vibe or energy of an office to get you there. So that would be my one piece of advice, is just try to keep it day to day.
Yeah, great advice. And I can attest that you're winning a lot more days than you're losing. And it's especially impressive, as you mentioned, you got 3 Rugrats running around at the same time. So you've done a great job with that. I'm curious, again, we're just now starting the year. Your goal is obviously to hit your quota and crush your quota. Do you have any other goals or objectives lined up, whether that be either personally or professionally? Or are there certain things that you're excited about in the recruitment industry? Any trends that you're keeping an eye on? What is kind of your big picture view of 2021?
So personally, I want to travel as much as I can when this stuff's over. Now I have 3 kids, so that's going to be a little bit more difficult, but maybe the trips that we would have pushed off a little bit, I think my wife and I are probably going to look to take those trips. We had to cancel our 10-year anniversary trip last year, which sucked, but I'm going to try to do more traveling as much as I can, because I think this just goes back to the theme, is that, nothing is promised tomorrow, especially with what we've seen. Professionally, I want to do better than I did the year before. So I'm always trying to eclipse what I did the year before. I did hit my quota last year, which was, if you had asked me, are you going to hit your quota last April, I would have laughed and said, there's no way. But, with a little bit of luck, which I think every salesperson needs, and drive and desire, and I think the market getting used to what, today is now, really helped. Going forward in the recruitment industry, I'm really excited to see what becomes of recruiting as we start to go back into more normal times, and whether they're going to force recruiters to be in an office every day, whether companies are going to allow people to be remote a couple days a week. Because of what I do think what you're going to start to see is companies that are more flexible with your availability to work remotely or have more of a work-life balance, to have the option to go into an office. I think those companies are going to win the best talent. The ones that are stuck on, okay, life is back to normal, we need you back in an office, I think they're going to lose a lot of talent to companies that have seen that you can be just as productive being remote as you can here in the office. So I'll be very curious to see, not only in the tech space, but, finance, right? Big banks, professional services, how those industries continue to evolve as we get back to normal.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to watch. And I agree with you completely that those companies that give their employees more flexibility, especially now that they've gotten used to it, keeping that is going to be really attractive, I think, for talent.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Brian, we've always finished up with what we call the Been a Good Times Fast Five. It's the 5 quick questions so that our audience gets to know you a little bit better on a personal level. You've already given us some good insights, but I always like to ask our guests what their favorite thing is about where they live. You're in the Memphis area right now, so I'm curious to know your favorite thing about Memphis. But you mentioned you lived in New York for a while. What do you miss most about New York?
So pre-kids, I miss the nightlife. I miss being able to walk outside, be with a group of friends, not have a plan, walk down the street, take a cab, and all of a sudden you're at this random place that you never heard of. And next thing you know, you've been there all night and you're having the time of your life. So I think that's pre-kids. Post-kids, New York was a little bit different. I miss the food. I mean, just, again, same theme, just being able to go outside, walk 2 blocks, go to a restaurant you've maybe never been to. There's so much good food in New York. So I think that's what I miss most about New York City. Memphis, the culture and the people. I mean, I moved back here with my wife. We're both from here. Our family's here. Memphis always, doesn't always get the best rap in terms of overall city. The crime rate's pretty bad, but at the end of the day, I do feel like there are great people here, and the culture here in general is phenomenal. And I love living here. Not everybody, I think, would think that about Memphis, but I truly love the people of this city.
That grit and grind spirit, right?
You know it, all hard grit and grind.
All right. Next question. So everyone knows that Kansas City barbecue is the best barbecue in the world. What is the second best? Is it Texas or the Carolinas?
So I would say that Kansas City is easily in the top 5. But, Memphis, I think, has solidified themselves as the number 1 spot. And, always a favorite story of mine is, a lot of my friends told me the day after my wedding here in 2010, they happened to stroll into I would say an above average barbecue place in East Memphis. And, who do they see sitting at that bar just chowing down? Benny Goodtimes. He couldn't wait to get back to Kansas City. He had to get himself some Memphis barbecue. So I would say Memphis barbecue comes in number one. And, Texas. I think Texas. I'm not really a vinegar type guy from North Carolina. So maybe Kansas City gets into that top three, but probably definitely go Memphis 1, Texas 2 on the barbecue scale.
We might have to do a little online poll to see what everyone else out there thinks. And I had to try the competition to see what it was all about. It was all right. Nothing compares to Kansas City. Best barbecue, best professional sports team, all that good stuff. So
where are you from, Ben?
I rep KC, even though I live in St. Petersburg, but it's all good.
Oh, you're from KC. Okay.
Next question. You mentioned that you had to cancel a vacation, unfortunately. But if I'm giving you a free ticket to travel anywhere in the world, where are you going?
I think I'm going to Australia. I don't know if I could stomach the flight. I don't love flying. I've flown to London and Switzerland once and didn't enjoy them, but I did it. But I would think Australia. I definitely want to go there at some point. Maybe hop over to New Zealand. So I think Australia, New Zealand, that area.
Highly recommend. And you could handle the flight nowadays. Just throw on some movies, you'd be good. Speaking of movies, question number 3 is, what is your favorite movie?
Whew, that's a tough one. I'm going to break this into 2 categories because I think you got to go. We'll say 3 categories. We'll go comedy, sports. I'm a big sports guy, and just in general. I think in general, Shawshank Redemption is my favorite movie. It's one of those movies that's, when it's on, I get stuck and I watch it through. Great acting, love the story. It's just phenomenal. My favorite comedy is Tommy Boy. Again, Chris Farley, if I could bring any actor back from the dead, I think he'd be at the top of my list. I think he was such a talent, and it was sad that we didn't get to see his whole career. But Tommy Boy, I'd laugh my ass off anytime I'm watching that movie still today. And then sports movie, Blue Chips. Blue Chips is my favorite sports movie, starring Anthony Penny Hardaway, Shaquille O'Neal, Nick Nolte. It was a great movie. And ironically enough, I think a lot of what the plot is about still holds true today with the NCAA and paying players. And I think that's pretty crazy that almost 30 years later, it still holds up.
Yeah, a classic, of course. Question number 4. So if I put you on stage and force you during a talent show to perform, what would you do?
I would call you on stage. We'd bring a topic up, and I'd debate the heck out of you, and I would be declared the winner. I think that's going to be the most talent that I can bring is debating you on a stage, Ben.
Yeah, well, I can certainly attest that you are skilled in debate. I don't know how many times you've come up on top when it's me and you head to head. I have to get some third parties to weigh in there, but we've certainly had our battles. And then finally, who is your biggest hero or inspiration, and why?
Yeah, I don't really have a hero per se. I think what inspires me is, and this shouldn't come as a surprise, I think all 3 of my kids, they're so young. They're 7, almost 5, and almost 2. And, I want to give them a great life. And so it's up to me. It's up to my wife to be able to do that. And they inspire me every day on the days I don't want to go upstairs and work, on the days I don't want to do stuff. I look at them and understand that they're the reason that I'm doing most of this. So as corny as it sounds, my kids give me the inspiration I need every day to do what I do.
Awesome. Well, hopefully they'll watch this interview at some point and be proud of their dad.
Unlikely.
Well, it'll be on the internet for posterity's sake. Before we hop off, Brian, just again, thanks for joining me today. It's a great conversation.
Yeah,
great catching up with you
me.
as always. But I want to give people out there, especially maybe people that are in the recruitment industry looking for talent, where can they go to find out a little bit more about Symphony Talent or about Smashfly specifically?
Yeah, I think best place, go to our website, symphonytalent.com, just like it sounds. You can read up more about our product, Smashfly X, some great case studies and really use cases for a lot of our customers. And should you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. There's only one Brian Bernatsky out there, and I am the one and the only. So, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Don't hesitate.
The one and the only. And as I mentioned, I've known you for 2 decades, and I've called you Brian more times in the past 20 minutes than in those 20 years.
Yeah,
because
it's weird.
everyone knows you as Bernie. That is Bernie,
That I
Brian
am.
Bernatsky. Thanks again for joining us. Again, for those of you out there that want to know a little bit more about Ridge, you can go to our website, which is ridge.com, RIDG.com. And again, go to our YouTube and Facebook pages. Thanks all for tuning in. We will see you next week. Take care.
Be well, Ben.